All right, we're live. My name is Attorney Vincent Davis, and this is Meet the Experts, Meet the CPS Experts. Tonight, my expert host and guest host is Attorney Elizabeth Jacobo. Hi, Ms. Jacobo. How are you?
Hi, Vince. I'm doing good. Really good.
For our viewers, why don't you do me a favor and give them a little background about yourself and about your experience? Currently, Elizabeth and I work together, but give them a little background, Elizabeth.
Sure. I have been a dependency attorney for approximately 13 years, and I grew up in East LA. And I went to East LA College, and I transferred to UCLA, and then I went over to Southwestern, and I just went to school as an adult, and so I really appreciate the opportunity I have and the opportunity I get now to defend parents against DCFS or CPS. Um, they are definitely the enemy when it comes to parents. They're not really your friend. And so I do work with Vince and I enjoy it. We fight the department and we try and get people their kids back. That's our job.
How long have you been an attorney, Liz?
13 years.
Okay. And
So I've been doing this all my life.
where did you go to law school?
I went to law school in Southwestern in
Okay.
downtown LA.
I don't know if you remember this, but do you know when we first met?
I remember our paths crossing over at, the courthouse, but I don't remember exactly when we first met. It's been a long time though, right?
It's been maybe a decade.
Yeah. Do you
Maybe
remember when we first met?
I do remember. You were opposing counsel on a case. I
Okay.
had what I think I had the father and you had the mother,
Okay.
and they were opposed to each other,
Ooh.
and the case was coming down towards an end, and we were started arguing about the exit order, the custody and visitation exit order, and
Okay.
I remember you kicked my butt in that case. I mean, you totally shocked me,
Thank you.
and I thought, the first thing I thought was, I didn't realize Lato had quality attorneys like that. But don't get me wrong, Lato does have, some good
Right.
quality attorneys, and that's the first time that we met. And I walked out of the courtroom shaking my head that day because you really gave me a run for my money, which I didn't expect at all.
Wow. Thank you. That's quite a compliment. I appreciate that.
I've never told you that, have I?
No, you never told me that story.
Okay, so what we're going to do this evening, we're going to try to take some comments from the audience, from the different social media platforms that we're simulcasting to tonight. And we're going to, if you guys have questions, go ahead and ask your questions in the comment section, and Liz and I will try to answer those questions. Elizabeth, are you working on any interesting cases right now?
Yeah, I actually have one on Wednesday, I think, coming up. It is an interesting case. The department, these people were the parents for a long time, foster parents, and then they adopted um, these little guys. And then they were accusing of neglect just about a couple months after they finalized their adoption, and now they don't want to even give reunification services back. So we have a tough fight ahead of us, Vince. We really do.
What's Wednesday? Is it a trial or something?
It's the adjudication about the jurisdiction itself to start off with, and problem is there is a little bit of maybe a tad bit of medical neglect that I think our client would even see was, they could have done a little bit better and get the child to the doctor sooner. But I mean, some of the things that they're alleging are beyond that. So it's not really something we can, negotiate on that. We're going to have to just go piece by piece on what the department really has as far as evidence goes.
Are you subpoenaing any witnesses, planning on cross-examining any witnesses during the trial?
Well, the biggest thing is the disposition because it's a no FR recommendation. So we've got a bigger trial lined up for that, where we're going to have some testimony from. Um, I think mom's attorney may have even looked into getting an expert to talk about bond between the parents and the children because of the no FR rec. So it
Okay.
should be interesting.
What about the social worker? Are you guys planning on
Oh yeah, definitely. We're crossing the social worker tomorrow because there's been just so much blatant disregard even for the court's order. The court's made some pretty decent orders as far as contact is concerned with the family, and they actually hired us because they have been just changing the orders on them with visitation and giving them a real hard time and blatantly just actually sending texts that say they don't care what the judge says, they're not going to follow an order. So we're happy to share that with the court tomorrow too. I
oh,
mean
that's
Wednesday.
that's always good, sharing those types of texts.
Yeah, that's going to be good.
Here's a question from Miss Hicks. Miss Hicks says, "Can you guys explain the difference between assault against a child versus child abuse versus the social worker just feeling like the discipline methods are inappropriate?" What do you say to that question, Liz?
Okay. I guess it depends on, I don't know if you're asking it because it was worded that way to you. Um, but inappropriate discipline, I would say, is when we maybe use an object to strike our children, because that's not allowed. There's age appropriate discipline, we still should be allowed to spank our children, as long as it's age appropriate. And that usually means using your hand, not using any other object. um Assault and versus abuse, I mean, those are pretty strong words, so that's going to entail a different kind of conduct on the parent's part. Actually, I would say using some sort of object, doing something that is violent towards the child. It just kind of depends on what we're talking about, because I mean discipline is one thing. If you're spanking a child or doing a timeout thing, I don't know what kind of inappropriate discipline you're referring to, but there is a difference in that question that you asked. What do you think, Vince?
Oh, I think I totally agree with you. Here's a question from Red Crossover. I've completed treatment and parenting classes and not failed one UA yet. They are going to adopt him, and they say they don't have the records of all my accomplishments. What do you
Okay.
think about that?
So, if they're gonna adopt the child out, that probably means you're at a later phase in your trial. There's two phases of family reunification and family permanency, right? So once you come in, you're given an opportunity to get your children back. That's called family reunification. That's where you'd be doing the treatment, the parenting, the drug testing that you said you did. Um, and then you're supposed to get unmonitored, and you kind of gradually go back to getting your child back, and that's the goal, reunification. If they're saying that the goal is adoption, that means that they're at permanency phase. So what you're going to need to do is, before that hearing, which I'm assuming is a 2-6 hearing, you would have to file some documents to put the brakes on that, or else the court will go ahead and terminate your parental rights. I hope you have an attorney, court appointed or otherwise, so that they could help you prepare those documents. And I hope you have copies of your records of all the things that you did, because that's, some big advice I'm going to give people out there is, no matter what, you know, copies you give, make sure they're copies, and that you keep copies for yourself as well. You want to keep proof of every good works that you've done. I always recommend that people create like a calendar and use it only for their CPS stuff. There you can write down your visits, your days that you call the social worker, your times. Keep track of everything. That way you can take that to court with you too. You can show your lawyer. It makes for good record keeping, and it's just common sense. It works out as a good plan.
All right, Elizabeth, here's a question from Leah Morales. When can I expect my lawyer, Ladle, to contact me? My court date was November 9 last week, and he never spoke to me, and I have yet to hear from him. What should we tell Leah?
Leah, I would say reach out to them through maybe you have their email. That's always a good method. Nowadays, we've got a lot of virtual appearances and in person appearances, and they get a little confusing. And I think that at the very least, most attorneys are always checking their email. So if you give them an email, let them know you'd like a follow up on what happened in court because you were confused. They should be, happy to be able to answer that question. And if not, you can always reach out to the whatever ladle firm head it is. They all have a leader, and you can reach out to one of them if you can't get your lawyer directly.
Very good. Here we have Aaron Carranza. Aaron is the host of a Tuesday night show at 7 p.m. Pacific time here on these same social media platforms. And she is known as the CPS Family Reunification Coach and Motivation
Oh,
Coach.
cool.
So, what happens is, a lot of people, the court takes jurisdiction over their kids after the juris and the dispositional hearing. And a lot of people don't focus on their reunification services or they get in such a rut that, they don't do
Yeah.
the services, right?
Yeah.
And everybody in the system thinks, "Oh, they can just do them just like that," but there's other issues going on,
Yeah.
they may have a little depression or a lot of depression because their kids aren't home, they're outside in a strange foster home, and, sometimes they may just not feel like doing the reunification services.
Right.
I had a client one time that really made me think of this service that we give, and Aaron is a great coach. Um, I had a client that was ordered to take drug testing, and just between you and I knew, or I felt I knew, that he was not using drugs. That never
Hmm.
was an issue. There were other issues, but drugs wasn't one of them.
Right.
But you know how it goes. You're at the disposition hearing, and the judge says, I order you to do drug counseling and drug testing.
Right.
And although he would go to the counseling sessions, he wouldn't do the testing. I mean, he was always missing, and he always had some type of reason. Some of them seemed legitimate reasons. Some
Hmm.
of them, to me, didn't seem legitimate. And I finally got to know him, talk more and more and more to him. And he finally opened up to me. And it was just an issue of motivation. It was an issue that he hated the fact that a judge could make him go take a drug test when he knew that he didn't have a drug problem.
Yeah.
And I needed to talk to him to convince him, to go do this. We took the case up on appeal. Um, but while it was pending on appeal, the time was ticking away.
Yeah.
The 2-1E hearing was approaching, and
That's the bad
you know,
part.
he needed to do the testing. So I finally convinced him, but man, it was a job. And that I didn't feel that that was part of my legal services,
Yeah.
but it was something that he needed. And I was thinking, if he needs this, there must be a lot of other people that need this. And I just really
Exactly.
never thought about that over the years. So I
Mhm.
talked to Erin, who had her own case. We didn't represent Erin. She had her own case in another county. And we were talking about it, and so she came up with this idea of maybe you should offer coaching, Mr. Davis, to these people. And I said, well, if you help me, I'll do that. So we do that on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m.
Oh, wow. I didn't
uh,
know that.
I know. I was talking to someone in the office today, Elizabeth, one of the other attorneys, and I was telling him about one of the shows, and he
Uh-huh.
said, I know you had a radio show. I've never listened to it, but I didn't know you did live streams during the week. And I said, yeah, there's several live streams on, sometimes multiple times a day.
Right.
So I need to tell more people about it
Yeah,
so
well,
that they'll know.
I found out from the last great invitation you gave me, but then it got me interested, so I did start to follow up and follow you after.
Okay, here's Becky. Becky's from Vermont. Can this program help with someone in Vermont? Becky, the answer is yes. I'm not licensed in Vermont. Neither is you're not licensed in Vermont, are you, Elizabeth?
No, only in Cali.
Okay. You know, a lot of our attorneys in the office are licensed in other states.
Right.
And I didn't know that, and I was surprised. Um, there's somebody that's licensed in 3 states, but,
Yeah,
you
you
know,
have an impressive, list of the people that work with you, you really do.
yeah. So, Becky, yes, we can do some consulting or coaching, but give us a call, 888-888-6582. Okay, here is Carissa. Carissa, hire a private attorney, SAP, that specializes in child protective services. Do it SAP. They've been doing these court cases behind closed doors due to COVID, and no one has been allowed in the courtroom, and the Zoom phone calls, etc., do not come through. Fa- Faded hire private attorney ASAP. You know, I put that up there, Elizabeth, because I wanted to ask you a question. How do you think COVID has affected these cases,
Mm, I
or
was
has
just
it
talking about that.
really affected these cases? Because
Uh,
I go to courtrooms and it's like, oh, COVID, it was just a thing, nothing happened, everything's cool. What do you think?
I'm really concerned about the long-term effects of COVID. Um, I see problems coming up right now, as a matter of fact, because what you had was, especially with the visitation orders with COVID, that really created a barrier for our parents to have decent contact with their children. And they were just getting away with it. You weren't able to see your kids, you had to see them only on Zoom. Some people didn't have the capability to do that or the resources, a phone that did that. And they just make the orders like everybody can deal with it, and it's very hard, especially being an attorney. Um, I mean, now I'm getting more used to the whole virtual world that we work in, but it was really difficult in the beginning for myself to transitioning to taking on new clients that you've never met before. Just reading their reports, electronically, turning in their paperwork electronically, and not getting that personal, kind of touch that you're used to when you see somebody in person. So I think it's, in some ways, the court itself, though, I know runs a little smoother, because I think there was a lot of things that we had on calendar that maybe didn't need as much time and could be done, via Zoom. Um, but I mean, I was just in court today, Vince, which I hadn't been in a long time. I thought we were going to do it via WebEx, and I'm emailing and I'm telling them I'm on the WebEx, da 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 da, and they let me know that my client's there. And so, yeah, I had to do the whole trip over to Monterey Park today, as a matter of fact, and it was virtually pretty empty, not too many people there, you know. But I'm
Mhm.
I'm worried about the statutes, limitations, and the time frames with our clients, and a lot of them that, they didn't even get their trials heard for so long because of all the mandatory extensions that they gave, just, like a sandwich, just didn't worry about how long these kids were out of people's homes. So I think it's going to have a long-term effect.
I want to see if I can play this video clip of this movie. I don't know if you heard about this movie, Elizabeth, but it's called Failure to Protect. And it made
Mm-mm.
its premiere at a film festival in Los Angeles a couple weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And now it's going from film festival to film festival. But I wanted you to take a look at that and tell me what you think. Hold on.
Is this the one that you guys were
They
talking
say
about?
that they're interested in taking care of the little innocent ones. They're not taking care of our son. They told us they could do a better job than us, Doc. That's what they said.
If I could say anything to a mother who just got their children detained, you're in a crisis. Life feels like it's over. The most important thing is regaining custody of your children.
The child welfare system at its core is designed to protect children who need protection. Okay, and that's key, is who need protection.
So social workers, out of fear, will remove more children rather than only remove those children that truly need to be removed.
The difference between the criminal system and the child welfare system is substantial. You have more rights as a criminal than you do as a parent.
You're not proving your guilt, innocence, or anything. You're proving how better a parent you are to the system. And you're just driving to be the parent.
Typically associate blessing with this fictional, painless existence and things going as we think they should.
Because it's so frustrating when you're the parent and you feel like, the judge, he doesn't know. And like you said, who is he going to believe? The parents accused of these horrendous allegations, or the social worker? Why would she lie about it?
The kids are traumatized, and the one person that they need to go to is still unsure what really happened.
Were there signs there? Were there no signs? Did I miss them? Did I catch them? At this point, I honestly don't know.
Families only get a finite amount of time to reunify.
The families are destroyed, sometimes never to come back the same.
Come here.
Kids are not safe in child protective services.
So my son with special needs has been in 4 different homes. It doesn't seem real.
This isn't someone stole your car. Someone broke into your house. This someone took your child.
Wow, that's heavy. I haven't seen it. I do want to see it now.
Yeah, it is. The gentleman who made it, his name is Jeremy. I forget his last name, but he interviewed me probably 3 years ago, and I had forgotten all about the movie and the project. And I thought, honestly, he never put it together. And then here he is launching it at a premiere, and he calls me up and he says, "Hey, the premiere is in a couple Saturdays. Sure would like you to go." And went down to LA Live, and it was there's a film festival going on, and it was part of that film festival.
Oh, nice.
But that movie now, he's submitting it into, and it won an award at the film festival, from what I understand. And he's going on the road with this movie, going from film festival to film festival.
Awesome.
So I had an interesting conversation with him about the movie afterwards, and I said, hey man, this could be like, any other movie. You could do, this is episode 1. You should keep doing this,
Yeah.
Every couple years. And he said, it was a lot of work, but he's a filmmaker, and he was doing other documentaries, other films about other stuff, in life. And he wasn't going to focus on this CPS issue. But he told me something interesting. He says, in all the cases that your law firm does and how long you've been doing it, 30 some years, he says, I bet you have a lot of stories that could be told. And I said, well, I do. And so he says, well, I'd ask him, I said, well, would you give me the template, on how to do something like this? And he said, yes. And he said,
wow.
one of the most important things is, the funding.
Yeah.
And in the movie, which was really interesting to me, I mean, you had Judge Nash there, right?
Right. I saw that.
you had Attorney Robert Powell, you had Attorney Sean McMillan, real heavyweights in this area. Um, and they had social workers. No social workers were in the trailers, but they actually had social workers who were on some of these cases. They
Mm.
showed pictures of, film of the children, and then these people going to court. And I was wondering how they got permission to do all of that
Right. Yeah.
from these confidential cases. But it was interesting. I thought it was a very good movie, especially if you didn't know anything about the system, and about child abuse and about social workers taking away your kids. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is if you have any interesting stories, please let me know, because we've started to make our own movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we're torn right now about whether to focus on one family or multiple families. In this movie, they focused on I think it was 3 or 4 families, and it was not happy endings, right?
Hmm.
Which I thought was realistic when I first heard about the movie and everything. I thought, well, everybody likes a happy ending. These are going to
Right.
end, the right way. With it, families reunited, and it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that at all. And it kind of was kind of a gut punch to make you realize, hey, when you remember when they detained all those kids that were coming across the border, quote unquote, illegally, and
Yeah.
they
What did they
separated,
do with them?
yeah, they separated them from their parents, and then the country went, up in arms and
Right.
outraged
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
on you know and and I thought to myself, well, they do this every day
Every day.
in juvenile courts around the state of California, all over the United States. And I don't know if you know this, because we get calls on the radio show. They have the same system in Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand.
Oh, and it's not
um
working there, and they still do it everywhere. You know, about the kids being removed. I have this. It irks me with the logic that the court uses, that you can't just, when your kids are removed from you, they are just up and taken away. The children that have lived in the home with there's only these people all their life, they're 5, 6 years old or what have you, and then they get placed in foster care, and the judge is going to make a determination, on some cases where these kids have been there, I guess going on the 12 months, you know, but that they're more stable there than they were with their own parents, and they don't want to just pluck them out of there. Well, you plucked them out of the home that they lived in for 6 or 7 years. They've only been here a year. What's your logic? It drives me nuts with that. Oh, they're stable now. Well, let's get them stable with their parents, because sometimes it seems like the goal is family reunification, except for when it's not, and you got those cases, Vince, that the people are doing everything that they asked them to do, and they're
right.
still not wanting to give the kids back, and it has to do with behavior things, or, um, oh, they're more stable here. And I just think that that's a bunch of crap. And, it shouldn't be, it's not the law. That's for sure.
All right, here's a question from Laura Sanchez. I'm in LA County. My question to you is, my 10-year-old daughter hasn't been wanting to talk to me. Don't know for what reason. But yesterday I asked her why she doesn't want to talk to me. And she just said, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I think the foster mother is giving me, her, and my 15-year-old too much free time.
Hmm.
Just to say that my 10-year-old has a boyfriend. She's
Oh.
FaceTiming him on her tablet, and the foster mom is just sitting there and not doing anything about it. The foster mother also adopted 2, and then it stops, I guess, 2 children. What do you think about that, Elizabeth?
That common problem, that happens a lot of times. Kids that are middle school age, teenagers, will get taken out of the home, and they get more freedom in a foster home a lot of times than we would allow them in our own home, yet we're the neglectful parent. So I mean, in those cases, I think you probably have to try and use some flies with sugar and talk to the CSW about their extensive use of the tablets and stuff, and maybe they can talk to the foster mom, unless because it sounds like you don't have a good relationship to ask foster mom directly, but you should start with that. And you're still the mom. You're still the mom, so you still get to tell your kids, you know what, you shouldn't be on the phone that often, or and if they say, well, so and so let us, then talk to the CSW, because I can't think that they would think that that's healthy either. Nobody needs too much FaceTime with devices, and kids, that's all they want to do these days. And of course, they don't want to visit with you or talk to you or do your visit, but bring that up that way, or try and do some. Your kids are 15 and 10. Hopefully, you're doing some conjoint counseling with them. That's always helpful, to reunify.
I talking about discipline of children, and when they get in foster homes, some children find it an easier place because there's not a lot of discipline. I haven't told this story in a long time, but many years ago, when I was first on the panel, like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I represented a guy who was an illegal immigrant who came to this country. He got married to a woman, and they had a baby. But this woman had an older child, a daughter, and they were staunch Catholics from Mexico. And the daughter was a teenage girl. She might have been about 15, 14, 15. And he, as the stepfather, wouldn't allow her to go out on dates. And she was pissed. And she made an allegation that he sexually abused her.
Bingo.
And and here's the story. The story gets more interesting. He swears to me up and down when they had the courthouse in Van Nuys. Do you remember that? They had those.
No, I never been to that one.
Okay.
I wasn't there.
Well, before the big building in Monterey Park, half of the dependency courts were in Van Nuys and bungalows.
Oh.
And we were standing outside in the bungalow, and he was, telling me how this is, all of these allegations are not true.
Right.
And I'm standing there thinking, well, damn, he's really adamant about this. Maybe he's telling me the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had the trial, and I cross-examined the girl, and she's like 15, so she's kind of sophisticated. She's able to follow her story and follow whatever she's saying.
Right.
And of course, the judge sustains the petition,
Mm-hmm.
and the kids are removed, the baby and the girl. And the girl got to go to a foster home where she basically got to do whatever she wanted.
Right.
Now, they decided to criminally prosecute the guy.
Ooh.
He was convicted, and then he was deported after serving a sentence. He was deported back to Mexico. And, several years go by. And I used to have an office when Stephanie Davis and I were partners. We had an office on Wilshire Boulevard between Normandy and Western, the old Paramount Plaza buildings. And we had something called a Fijian suite where, you rented the office, you shared reception with other attorneys, you shared a conference room with other attorneys, and you shared a law library with other attorneys. Now, remember, there's no, at this time, there's no internet. There's nothing like that.
Yeah.
So everyone used the library.
Go to
Right.
the books.
Right. So one day I'm in the law library, and I look over and I see this young woman sitting there, and she's doing research. And it's obvious she's doing research for one of the other attorneys, on the floor. They used to send their clerks and paralegals in there all the time. And I recognized her. It was the girl from this trial. And
The stepdaughter.
yes. And I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. I just went about my business and I left. Case is long closed. My
Right.
guy, he's been deported. And I see her a couple more times over the next couple of weeks in the library.
Okay.
Finally, she approaches me. She says, "Excuse me." And I said, "Yes." She goes, "Are you Mr. Davis?" I said, "Yes, I am." Now I know who she is, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm acting like I don't know.
Right.
And she says, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I said, "Well, to tell you the truth, I do remember you."
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Yeah." She says, I want to tell you something." I said, "What?" She says, "That case ruined my life." And I'm thinking, well, maybe
Ruin your life.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe my guy, did something to her and, her life is
Right.
ruined, right?
Right.
And then she says, "I lied."
Oh,
She says, "I lied." And she said, "I lied because he was too strict. He
wow.
wouldn't let me go on dates and out with my friends, and my mother wouldn't do anything about it.
Mm,
So I found out from people at school how to get him out of our house.
mm.
And it was to make a false accusation of sex abuse." Now, listen, does sex abuse happen to kids?
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yes, it
Mhm.
does. I'm just talking about this one case.
Right.
And what she really, really regretted was that her half brother, remember the baby that was
Oh,
born,
yeah.
grew up without a father.
Oh,
And because of that, he got involved in the gang scene and the drug dealing because he
right.
had no, according to her, male motto,
That sucks.
right?
Yeah, and it happens.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
I
I
asked her, I said, "Well, are you guys able to contact him?" And she says, "No, we don't know what happened to him. He was deported back to
oh,
Mexico. We never know. We tried to find him." And she says, "The reason why I'm approaching you is, do you know how to get in touch with him?"
oh wow.
And I said, "No, since he had been incarcerated, I had no contact with him. And then when he was deported, the INS wasn't giving me any information,
Right.
but how to keep in contact with him. You know, I was his court-appointed attorney. Case closed. You know, lives ruined, families ruined,
So
all
many
because
stories, right?
yeah,
Because she lied. You know,
right,
when my sister she works as a teacher and she'd invite me to career day. Oh no, it wasn't at that career day. It was at a different, it was at my son's middle school one. Um and I had went in like it would like do a little, you'd go in this one and then they'd change 15 minutes and you'd go into another room, rotate is the word I was looking for, right? And so I came in right after this one woman. She was a social worker. And it was funny because I came in right after the social worker. And so I told the kids, whatever she just said, I'm going to tell you something totally different. I did. And you know what? And I told those kids, um, just, you speak up when somebody's hurting you. That's not what I'm suggesting. But you know what? We also know tricks that can be played by kids of your age, and you need to realize the consequences that you create. And I warn them about lying, you know, because, oh, I know how I can get to go to the mall or I could get to go do this or whatever. I'll just say my stepdad hits me or the big card. My stepdad is molesting me, which is horrible because obviously, our court system really conservative, whoever it is, whatever they say, you're going down on that allegation, many times. So I've warned those kids not to tell lies because it can't create, look at what you said, that changed everybody's life and it affected hers too. It's not like she walked away grinning. She did realize, you know, that it was a huge price to pay.
right.
So,
There's so many stories like that, and like I'm not minimizing the fact that there is child abuse out there. Okay,
right.
I don't deny that, but you know this system, although it's a great idea in theory, the implication or the application of it sometimes gets a little skewed.
Right.
And, in the quest to win and to, protect children, sometimes, we lose sight of that. The other day, I was doing a closing argument in front of a judge, and, I basically said, Judge, social workers telling us you know, teenage girls don't lie. I said, you got any kids? Right? Everybody lies at some point. And some point, they'll tell a lie and it starts to snowball.
Right.
Starts to snowball. And I often wonder, what would I do if I were the judge?
Yeah.
Right? What would I do? And when I think about that, I think, that's a really hard job.
It is.
A really hard job.
It is,
And
because you come at them, and I know you've been doing this way, bit longer than me, but I know that most of the time the golden ticket, in your closing argument is logic, because, you know, eh, the the department does want to present a picture sometimes of children that, that never lie, that and that's just not a reality. Children do lie. My own children lie. The judge's children lie. Everybody tells a little tale here or there. So for them to take what these kids say, especially when they're really little, and how about when they take really little kids' statements and they act like that was, it had to be true because she was 4 years old and she said it, so, and they use that as reliable evidence
right.
to take kids away from people every day. And it's not cool.
Right. Here's a question from Melissa. Hi, I'm supposed to have visitation with my 2 kids for 2, I guess, hours. It's been 2 months, only saw kids once. They do not have enough people to follow the court orders. What do I do? What do you think?
Well, I would be telling them you should tell your lawyer, because they do have to fight for you. Sometimes if you haven't had visits in 2 months, let's walk that matter on to get it in front of the court, because you're supposed to be able to see your kids weekly, you know. I would suggest, though, for the meantime, make sure that you're reaching out to the social worker. There's a reason why. I mean, they're saying that they don't have enough people. Um, in our county, I know that in most counties, they have you offer somebody to do your live. They do a live scan and they get to be your monitor. So hopefully you have maybe friends or family that can avail themselves to you that would be willing to do the live scan, because the department does try to get away with that sometimes, that they don't have anybody to monitor the visits. I don't see how it's possible, but it does happen. So the alternative is to offer other people as monitors and to reach out to your attorney to see if they can walk the matter on, because that shouldn't be an acceptable thing that's going on with your kids.
All right. I can't pronounce the name on this one, but it says, if a mother lost rights to her children to the father, is she allowed to be in the children's lives if the father is okay with it? What do you say,
Okay.
Elizabeth?
So losing rights is a big term. Losing rights means you're no longer the mother or the father. That's how we use it in independency. So you lost custody, it sounds like, more likely, and dad has custody of the child. If there is limitations in that custody order that says, the children are not to be allowed around the mother or something to that regard, then there's your limitations. If there's none, if it just gives dad custody and it says he can, monitor the visits or whatever, I mean, I don't see why you couldn't be allowed in the kids' lives. If dad's okay with it, maybe you guys should go and try to modify that order back in family law and have that order changed so it could be legal and you can have appropriate, contact with your kids. I'm not sure why. Maybe you didn't complete reunification and there's stuff you needed to do. So as long as there's no limitations on the order itself that says you shouldn't be around them, and dad wants you to be around them, I don't see that it should be a problem.
Okay. Here's Casey Metz. Casey says, question: Judge ordered the department to give a transition plan. They refused. Judge said she's ordering family maintenance in December with or without the transition. The department still has refused to do any transition and is following what they wanted. What happens if the department refuses to give the kids back after it's court ordered? Assuming this case is in California. Elizabeth, what do you say?
No, the kids go back. If it's court ordered, the kids go back. So the department can not recommend for the kids to return. They can do that all they want, and the judge can over their objection return the children to the family. And once that order has been signed, the department can't interfere with that. That's a court order, and the children will and shall be returned back to the parents. And so it sounds like that's an indicator that if the court wants to do family maintenance, she's going to go home a parent in December. So let's just be patient. And if there's no transition plan, at the end of the day, the court is just going to be upset with the department. Maybe she'll sanction them, punish them for not doing what they needed to do. But it sounds like she's going to send them home no matter what.
Have you ever come across a case or heard about a case where the judge has ordered the return of the child or children and the social worker refuses to do it?
I've never heard of the social worker not actually physically giving the kids back when there's been a court order. But I did have a really funny case where the department was afraid to go out and detain the kid from a mom who I represented, that the court had signed the order for suitable placement and to have the kid detained. And the department never did that. They did, like, for years, they left the kid there, probably 2 years, until he got these really bad bed welts. And there was some worse kind of medical neglect that was going on, that an ambulance had to be called. Yeah, to where it wasn't mom's fault. She really was trying to help this kid, but with the means and the resources that she had, and
Mhm.
he had been shot as a young teen. Yeah. And so he was disabled and he was in a wheelchair. And I think that was part of the department's fear, was like, they didn't want to go out there and physically take this kid who didn't want to physically go with them, and I know they take kids kicking and screaming all the time, but I think maybe being that it was in a person with a disability, I think maybe they were a little cautious on that. So yeah, they left that kid there after he had been suitably placed for about a year and a half. Did they finally file another 342 petition, 380? I don't even know what they filed because he was really detained already, but they were able to finally detain him officially right before he turned 18, and they were trying to give him some ongoing resources, and mom just had it already with the department. I mean, that was a really crazy case. I'd never seen anything like that before, Vince. I went to a meeting at USC, and this is when I was at Ladle. But we had to go meet with all these doctors and experts and all this stuff on this panel that were kind of putting their 2 cents in on what was going on with this kid, because even though he was detained from his mother, the best thing was yet for the mom to be around the kid with no limitations, because she was all he had, kind of, and he was, he wasn't a paraplegic, but it was really bad. It was really bad. So he really depended on her a lot. So we had all these experts and social workers and different doctors, and that was one of pretty interesting cases that I had. So,
In the years that you've been doing this, Elizabeth, what's probably the saddest or the story that's affected you most as a human being, not as a lawyer, but as a human being in doing these cases?
probably one where I represented this young guy And he was in a relationship with mom. They were probably like 17, 18, something like that. And it was a shaken baby case, you know. And he ended up going to, I don't know that he got convicted at the end, but they were holding him in juvenile custody for being the, you know, the alleged perp of the case. But here's the sad part. We think it was mom, you know. And you know, when you're on these cases, it's really hard to be like uh get against each other, especially if they already got a fall guy, because you want the other parent to get family reunification. So that's kind of part of strategy that happens in these types of cases where they don't want to give you FR, you know? And so, and dad wanted us to just keep quiet because he wanted her to be able to get the baby back, you know? And at the sad thing was that at the end of the day, nobody got that baby because Miner's attorney, she just knew that it was the mom. I mean, she just, you know why? Because mom was really young. She really didn't want the baby in the first place. The only caretakers were really the mom and the dad, you know. And I think the grandma, I think they lived there or something, but she would like call the grandmother from the bedroom in the same house to say, can you come get the baby? Because she's crying. And, you know, she couldn't deal well with the baby. And then what turns out is it was shaken baby. And yes, there was a little to worry about at the time, you know, but then the baby turned out to be fine. And, you know, the sad thing was that she ended up getting adopted out to another family because our client sadly didn't get the baby back. I think I want to say the good news was the criminal thing didn't hold with him either. So that was the good news. But he did stay in jail for a while and they did lose their only baby, you know. And I know that was just a sad story for me. What about yours?
You know, I've got a couple, but I'll tell you this one. I was going to say there was some humor in it looking back on it, but at the time it was not humorous.
Right.
I represented a guy who allegedly was a gang member, and he had been accused again of sexually abusing his daughter, who was like 5 or 6.
Bio?
Hmm?
His bio kid?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he swore and he was arrested for it. So he was in jail. And he swore to me up and down that he would never do this, you know. And he nobody could even know about the allegations because, you know, he's in jail, gang
Right.
member, accused of sexually abusing his own daughter.
That's
I
not
mean,
good.
his future wasn't looking good.
Mm-mm.
But he swore to me up and down that he didn't do it. And the county council, who you know, but I won't mention their name,
I probably
was
know exactly what it is right now.
was telling me or kind of was trying to convince me to give me a deal, you know, to make this thing go away. And my client told me, he says, you know, Vince, I can't do it. He says, if I plead no contest to this, I'm a dead man.
Right.
And, you know, so he was very serious about it. So we got to go to trial. And I'm thinking, you know, this is not, I'm thinking, you know, I'm going to try my hardest, but this is not going to turn out well. But anyway, we go through the trial and the county council, who happens to be retired, she's questioning the girl and, you know, the girl's giving all the right answers.
Now I know exactly what it is.
She's giving, you know, the girl's giving all the right answers.
Mm-hmm.
And so the judge, we're in chambers, and the judge looks at me and says, Mr. Davis, you're a witness. So, you know, I tried to develop a relationship with the little girl, and I guess I was successful because I say to her, just it just came out of nowhere. Like, you shouldn't be asking this question, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to her, the little girl, I said, you see that guy right there? And I pointed at the judge.
Uh-huh.
I said, he touched you too, didn't he? And she looks around and she says, yeah, he did.
Oh my God.
Right. And then I said, well, he touched you down here in your private parts. And she looks around. Yeah, he did do that.
Wow.
And I pointed to someone else in the room, another male. I said, and he touched you too, didn't he? And at this point, the
County
county
council's dying.
she's objecting, like, objection.
Right.
And the judge says, what are you objecting to? And she says, improper hypothetical. And he looks at her for like 5 seconds and just says, overruled.
Overruled.
So she said, the little girl admits to touching this other guy. And then I say to her, and I touched you too, didn't I? And she says, yes.
Taking a chance on that one, huh?
Yeah. So as it turns out, I continue my questioning. And I didn't know this because my client had never told me this. But my client, quote unquote, gang member,
Uh-huh.
mother strung out on drugs, right? Mother's mother was a big time LA County sheriff
Oh, wow.
who had the kid. And I guess she wanted to make sure that my client didn't get out of jail.
Right.
She's going to save the grandkid and the daughter,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because my
Yeah.
client got her involved in drugs,
Mm-hmm.
allegedly.
That'll take care of it both ways. Two
Right.
birds. Mm-hmm.
And I asked the girl, who told you to tell us this?
Ooh, grandma.
And she said, oh, my grandma.
Yep. I've gotten lucky on one of those before too. Did anybody tell you to say that? My grandma,
Right.
sometimes you can feel them, but you can also have a not so great moment when
Right.
they
You can go down in flames, taking risks like that.
Well, you know what? I thought it was funny. I had one the other day, and first kid testifies, and no, I'm afraid. I don't even want to have a visit by myself. I'm like, oh my God, I'm dying on this one, right? I didn't call them. I had not called them. Minors counsel called them to prove her point, right? But the last kid testifies, and he was my boy. I love that sweet child because they said, so your mom wants to be able to take you home today. Would you be comfortable going home today? And the little boy goes, I'll give her a shot.
All right. We have time for one more. Here we go. Elizabeth Jasmine Duarte. I'm homeless and I was a victim of human trafficking and I'm being accused falsely and DCFS took my kids. I lost my place. I'm being accused falsely and DCF took my kids. My baby is 3 months and I did all drug tests and it's clean. And she said 7 days and 2 months and nothing. I'm not sure what she refers to that. But Elizabeth, if this woman came into our office, what would you advise her?
Well, first of all, I want to be concerned with her safety too. It says she's homeless and a victim of human trafficking. I don't know if you can get yourself into some sort of shelter that might help you with where you're staying while you're doing services to try and get your kids back. Okay. Because you need to focus on getting your kids back because there's time frames and you don't have a lot of time to prove that you can get them back. And sometimes if you're in a homeless shelter, they can help you with all those programs. I know Salvation Army has a great program. I don't know of any others. I don't know about you, Vince, but sometimes if you get into a good program, you can really build everything up. So that way you can get services there. They can help you get your visits. You can help you transition to actually getting your kids back, because it's a really hard road to get your kids when you got nobody to help you and you're homeless and you're trying to do things that you're court ordered to do. That's a tough one, hun. So I would look for some shelters or any kind of help that way.
Okay, Jasmine, I hope that helps you. Elizabeth, we've come to the end of our hour. I
Wow,
want
that
to
was
thank
fun.
you. Thank you for being a host, a co-host this evening. I'm going to have the producer give you a call about appearing on some of our other shows during the week, our live streams. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow, one of our flagship shows is CPS Family Reunification Coaching and Motivation with Coach Aaron Carranza. So everyone, please tune in to these same social media platform and channels, and listen to Aaron and her guests tomorrow night.
And
All
that's
right,
at 7, you said?
7 p.m. Pacific
Yeah.
time.
Okay, I'm going to check that out.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thanks, Vince. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.